Well, we continue our thinking around some of the passages that we find in the Sermon on the Mount. We know part of the Sermon on the Mount really well, but there are wider teachings that we find there, and we continue to explore those. I wonder if I asked you the question, what is at the core of who you are? What would your response be? If someone looked deep inside you, what would they find? In the passage that we're going to look at today, Jesus is teaching his disciples and those listening to him the difference between earthly treasures and heavenly treasure. So I'd like to encourage you to read in your groups from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 6, verses 19 to 21. And as you read it, ask yourself the question, what do I treasure? And what do I treasure most? I asked earlier, what is at the core of who you are? And I guess I asked it because we recognize that what lies at the core of who we are often the things that we treasure most in our lives, the things that we value highly. When my boys were little, my mum used to refer to them as my treasures. That's how she that's how she referred to them. And even our toddler group here at church is known as little treasures. Sometimes it's people who we treasure most in our lives. For others, our treasures might be things of sentimental worth, things that have real meaning to us, perhaps even from the past. For others, sometimes we might treasure money or possessions or power or fame or attention. It's certainly true that there are many things in this world competing for our attention. And even perhaps at its most extreme, there are things that are vying for control of our hearts as well. According to Jesus, determining where our treasure is also determines where our heart is. You read that earlier. As Christians, we know that we're called to look to the things of God. But it can sometimes be that our hearts are not always right. They're not always where they should be. Sometimes our hearts can be caught up in all kinds of stuff of this world. And then we find that actually that's perhaps where our treasures really lie. It's an uncomfortable acknowledgement that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. If something is of genuine value to us, often there's no disguising it. It's there, it's seen, it's obvious. The worth we place on the various things in our lives is evident, often by our priorities. That which truly means the most will often get the best of our time and our attention. That which we treasure, we treat like a treasure. But sometimes that can all get skewed. Jesus warned his listeners that earthly treasures have an expiry date. While things might satisfy us temporarily, often the things that we focus in on can be unstable and can be so fleeting, so fast-moving. Things change so quickly. And so one of the good questions to ask ourselves as we explore this passage is what matters most to us. Jesus was urging his listeners to look beyond what is temporary, to think beyond the last breath that we've just taken and to think about what has eternal consequences. To have an eye on eternity, in other words, where our treasure is laid up in heaven. And when we begin to journey in that way, then sometimes we can find that our perspectives actually change. And sometimes we can find a more godly perspective on life, and our priorities can be different then. Sadly, as Christians, it's very easy for us to fall into the trap of viewing success in terms of the temporary stuff: fame, education, wealth, beauty, athletic ability, talents, approval, and power. But all of those things are so easily lost. Whereas the marks of good living include those things that are of enduring value: faith, compassion, hope, love, generosity, kindness, humility, commitment, and so the list goes on. These things are the traits that reveal who a person really is. And the way to lay up treasures in heaven is actually about us developing a Christ-like character in who we are and in how we live. Jesus says that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And the word heart that Jesus uses there is used in a sense about the whole inner being of who we are, the core of our total being, the foundation of all that we are, and its outworking of all that we do. It's not so much that our treasure follows our hearts as it is that our hearts follow our treasure. In other words, the things we treasure actually govern our lives. That is a huge challenge to us. What governs your life? What takes the focus of your time and your energy? In your group, as you continue to explore this passage, maybe for some of us, we might feel challenged to reconsider our priorities in life. So, some questions up here, and I really hope that you have a good discussion around them.